All right, so famous inventors and inventions of the Industrial Revolution. Man, a lot of stuff happened during this time. So let's go over some of it, some of the inventions and inventors who invented those things. Alexander Graham Bell. Alexander Graham Bell was from Scotland. He moved to Boston, Massachusetts in 1871. He was fascinated by sound and speech. He took a job at the Boston School for the Deaf. So he's teaching people who couldn't hear. Pretty cool, huh? He believed it was possible for people to communicate to each other across long distances through the use of wires. When he wasn't working, Bell devoted his time to building what he called a talking telegraph. Now, for those of you that can't remember what a telegraph was, it was a way that people communicated by using electrical signals and pulses, by tapping this metal little lever at this end in different intervals and different things, and then they would decode that at the other end into words. And that's how there was the first long distance communication through wires, where before that they would send messages by carriers, and they were called the Pony Express. When they would give a message to a person, he'd jump on a horse and ride to another person with a horse, give him the message, he'll keep going, because couldn't keep the horses going for miles and miles and miles. They would get tired or you end up harming the horses. So it's like a giant relay race to get a message over long distances, and it took quite a while. Well, this was pretty instantaneous. Probably not quite as fast as telephone is today, but it was much faster than a horse, let me tell you. So on March 10th, 1876, Bell tested his talking telegraph with the help of a man named Thomas Watson. Bell and Watson each stood in different rooms of the same building, each connected by a wire with a device at each end. Bell proclaimed into the device at the end of the wire, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." Watson heard Bell's message loud and clear and rushed into the other room to tell Bell. Better known today as the telephone, Bell forever changed how people could communicate with one another. By the time he was of his death in 1922, millions of telephones were in use throughout the United States. What do you think he would think about today's communication? I bet his mind would be blown with the telephones we have today. I don't even know if we call them telephones, really. We call them cell phones, devices, whatever you want to call them now. But they're as strong as some big, huge computers were when I was a kid. It's in photos and emails and communicating so many different ways. His mind would just be blown. He'd be probably very excited to know that his invention led to the inventions that we have today. The next person we want to talk about is Thomas Edison. Now, we have all heard the stories of Thomas Edison throughout school and on television, but let's tell a little, keep it simple but short, but let's talk some more about Thomas Edison. He was born and raised in the Midwest. Thomas Edison lived from 1847 until 1931, my mistake, and became one of America's most accomplished inventors. As a young boy, Edison developed a hearing problem, which historians believe was due to heredity or genetics, something that he got from his parents, basically. His difficulty in hearing would play a significant role shaping his work throughout his life. Now, we've all read a story about how Thomas Jefferson had a hard time reading and left school, and his mom started teaching him at home, homeschooling, what we call it today, because he was failing in school. And that was basically because his hearing. Edison's partial deafness served as motivation for several of his inventions. First, he began his career as an apprentice telegrapher in 1863 during the midst of the Civil War. Messages via telegraph were received on a small strip of paper as dashes and dots. As a telegrapher, it was Edison's job to decode the dashes and dots. There's a picture of a telegraph machine right there. Unfortunately for Edison, though, after beginning his career as a telegrapher, telegraph machines began to be built with sounding keyboards that would allow telegraphers to decode telegraphs by the clicks they heard. Because of this, Edison realized rather quickly that his career as a telegrapher was in serious jeopardy. And why was that? That's right, remember, he had a hearing problem. Putting his creativity and knowledge to work, he was able to create a telegraph machine that could decode electronic signals into letters. His new invention convinced him to forego his career as a telegrapher and instead become a full-time inventor. While typing to create a similar device to transcribe signals on the telephone, he invented the phonograph. A phonograph is a record player, a device that can record sounds and play them back. Here's a picture of him with a phonograph. If I know most of you guys are going, a record player? Well, I remember records from when I was a young boy, all the way up until, all throughout my 20s as well. Record players were the main device we listened to stuff on. And then we had cassettes. And after cassettes, well, you had 8-track tapes and then cassettes. Then after cassettes, there came the CD. And most of you don't even know what a CD is anymore. Because now you have your digital devices and you just use your phone to play your music. It's awesome, don't get me wrong. But I do remember record players. Matter of fact, I have a bunch of records in one of my closets from when I was a young man. Edison's most significant invention, however, came in the late 1870s, the incandescent light bulb. Even though the light bulb had already been invented decades earlier, during the 1840s, they had many issues. They were plagued with extremely short lifespans and required a lot of electrical power, which made early light bulbs impractical for use. See, now I know some of you heard me say this before in class that, Edison didn't create the light bulb. Every time you say, what did Edison make? Everybody says the light bulb. He didn't. He didn't invent the light bulb. He created a better light bulb, though. The incandescent light bulb Edison invented could last much longer than before, needed to be replaced, and didn't require nearly as much electricity to work properly. While demonstrating his invention, Edison proclaimed, "We will make electricity so cheap that only the rich will burn candles." What do you think Edison meant by that? The incandescent light bulb and phonograph were Edison's two most famous inventions. He also invented and improved numerous other devices such as the movie camera, batteries, microphone, and telephone speakers. He was involved in probably more inventions than anybody would ever know. He was the first one to set up a company just to have scientists work on inventions. So he got a lot of credit for a lot of inventions that other people did, but it was his company that they created it. So Edison was extremely smart, don't get me wrong. And so most of our things that are invented now are invented these ways now through big companies. Okay, other important inventions of the Industrial Revolution. In addition to the inventions and contributions of Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison, there were numerous other advancements and inventions that helped fuel the Industrial Revolution. One such invention was the spinning jenny. The spinning jenny was a machine that could spin and draw thread from 8 spindles instead of just one, making it possible to mass produce textiles and clothing. The steam engine. The steam engine was used as a source of power, and the steam engine greatly enhanced production and transportation abilities. Before the steam engine, factories were powered by water or wind. It had to be built near a water source or in a windy area. With the steam engine, though, factories didn't have to rely on water or wind for power, and they could be located anywhere. Steamboats and locomotive trains were equipped with steam engines, allowing them to pull or carry more weight across longer distances at faster speeds. So, that's our lesson for today. Remember I told you about the optional videos. There's 1 to usually 4 optional videos available for each lesson, usually. And they're great to learn more about a specific person or topic or get a different viewpoint of the class that I've taught today. So I encourage you to watch them and learn more. After that, you can look over the vocabulary words I have listed there for you. And eventually I'll combine them and we'll put them in a Quizlet for you, which is what this is about. And so this is lesson 2 or 3, right? So we'll start probably about lesson 3. We'll have a Quizlet link for you, so you can do that. And then go on and do your check on learning. Check on learning could be anywhere from a multiple choice, true or false, or whatever type of questions I ask you. It could be something just to write. So do a check on learning so I know what you've learned today. And I'll see you next time for Locke Social Studies. Goodbye.